am Mello.
And I am Tim. All right. We're doing something different besides just the intro. Today, it's a little bit different, and we're going to be reviewing, we're not going to be reviewing a slot like we normally do. We'll stick it to a different day. We're still talking gaming. We're still talking mechanics, probability, all of that stuff. But this episode is bigger than just casinos. We're going to widen the net a little bit. And because honestly, I think the internet completely broke the traditional definition of gambling we talked about in a previous episode that we'll link to when it came to crypto gaming. Link right here,
Yeah, we'll link
maybe
right. We'll link
right
right
there.
there.
The strange part is that most experienced gambling mechanisms and mechanics, I should say, were there long before we introduced before we even knew what gambling was, or the term gambling as a whole. So if you think about kind of growing up, uh, Pokemon cards, maybe that was a little bit after our time, Mellow.
No, no,
Arcades,
no. I have a Charizard. Anyway, go.
you do.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a PSA 9 or 10.
Haven't PSA'd it.
Mm,
That's a whole weird process where you have to, go to LA to do. But yeah.
yep. So things like arcades, loot boxes, fantasy sports leagues, CSGO, which is Counter Strike, skins, pack openings like baseball cards, things like that.
Uh,
The good old days. But even those ticket machines at arcades were basically teaching randomness, anticipation, rarity, reward chasing. And at the time, it just kind of felt like a lot of entertainment, which, we could probably sit here and do a whole episode on arcades and growing up. But, as we look back on those things and look back at a lot of systems, they were introducing the same psychological loops gambling uses today, and they have used for many, many years.
yeah, and I think that's an important distinction. It's kind of funny you mentioned those things because it just sort of reminded me. I'm going to age myself outside of my, younger years, but I do remember like kind of doing the whole random pack opening of looking for a Daryl Strawberry rookie card. Man,
Mm.
that is going to age me. Anyway, but for most people, and long story short, what was it worth it? No. Anyway, for most people, gambling used to mean casinos, slot machines, Vegas, sports betting, a physical place, a destination. But the internet changed that completely. And now, the mechanics are just everywhere. So they're in video games, they're in mobile apps, streaming, social platforms, esports, virtual currencies, prediction markets, on and on and on. And the market keeps going and going to different areas. Um, and a lot of these products don't legally qualify as gambling, as evidenced currently by who actually does the oversight for Polymarket and Kalshi, among others. But they definitely feel adjacent to it. That's the weird gray area that we're going to talk to today. Because at some point, gambling stopped being a location, a destination, almost like a feeling, really. And it sort of just became a mechanic or, dare I say, content.
All right. So today's episode is really about one question. What actually is gambling anymore? Because legally, there's a definition. Psychologically, there's another definition. And culturally, I think the internet blurred all of it.
Yeah, and the reason this matters is because entire industries now exist inside those gray areas. So you have like the social casinos where you're basically playing for virtual chips, sweepstakes casinos, which sort of just mimic a sweepstakes, the DFS, which is, obviously daily fantasy sports, prediction markets, as we've spoken in the past, loot boxes. Someone really has to explain that to me. Roblox casinos and skin gambling. Some are regulated and some aren't. Some probably eventually will be. I mean, obviously, I think prediction markets is going to be, fast and quick in that. And the laws haven't caught up in most jurisdictions.
Yeah. And so we always mention our framework, and I think this is a good time to kind of say it again. Perception, probability, design. Perception, this feels like gambling. Probability, legally, maybe not. And then design, make it engaging enough that people behave similarly anyways. And honestly, this might be the purest version of the framework we've ever discussed as we've gone through this. All right, so let's go a little bit deeper as we go into this. And I honestly think the internet, we mentioned this already, but the internet broke the traditional definition of gambling because for decades, gambling was relatively simple: casino, sportsbook, lottery ticket, physical spaces.
But now, gambling mechanics exist everywhere, as we said: video games, social apps, loot boxes, prediction markets, Roblox, crypto platforms, and a lot of those products aren't legally gambling in the truest sense.
Which creates this weird disconnect where something can feel exactly like gambling, but without legally being classified that way.
You know, I sometimes think when you go out to like eat like at a fast food restaurant, that's like gambling too, because you never quite know what you're going to get. Anyway.
Life's full of a gamble, right?
Anyway, yeah. At some point, gambling stopped being a place and it became like a mechanic.
All right, so let's start with the traditional legal definition of gambling. I think it's a really good place to start. It gives us a kind of a framework of how this whole episode's going to go and what we're going to talk about. This confuses a lot of people, except for insiders, but we're going to walk through so it's very clear on what these things are. So generally speaking, gambling usually requires three elements: prize, chance, and consideration. Meaning you risk something of value on an uncertain outcome with a possibility of receiving a prize, right? And if you think about the traditional slot game that you go into a casino for, you're betting your own money. You might bet $1. That's fine. You don't know what the outcome is going to be because it's uncertain. It's random, a random number generator, and you have a possibility of receiving a prize. You can win $20 or a jackpot or something like that. And so that framework made a lot of sense historically because casino gambling was straightforward. You wager money, random outcome, potential payout, simple.
Yeah, but the internet complicated all of this because now companies started engineering products around those definitions. And a lot of modern gaming products essentially remove or weaken one prong. So maybe there's no direct cash payout, no real money technically involved, or companies argue skill instead of chance. That was always my favorite. That's where things get messy. To take us back, I do remember when we were like pitching the idea of going on Facebook with slots because we noticed like a massive uptick on the free play. Because back in the old days, we used to offer, and I think they still do. I think it's mostly affiliate sites, but we used to offer on our own site actually free play of the games we had, and we always noticed that there was like a noticeable uptick in the servers, just people just playing the games for free, and so that actually is what triggered our move to putting these on like social environments for virtual coins. Anyway, but that ultimately what made these things get messy because now the players' experiences and the legal classification started drifting apart. I feel it was a good story though, Tim.
It was. Where are you looking out of your screen, by the way? Because you're looking down. You're not looking at the camera.
Well, the camera is up.
Shouldn't you be looking at the camera, though?
I mean, I should be looking toward the camera.
Yeah. You're just staring down at your computer.
Is this better?
I don't know. I think you need to move your camera down. But all right, let's jump back into it. And honestly, one of the most interesting philosophical questions is, does time count as a consideration? Sometimes there's a fourth mechanism beside, prize, chance, and consideration. Some people say time. Legally, it's usually no, or at least not directly, but realistically, time is valuable. Attention is valuable. Engagement is valuable. Modern internet businesses monetize attention constantly. So even free systems, I use that in quotes and loosely, aren't necessarily free psychologically or economically.
Yeah, I mean, I would even classify like time sort of as a transaction cost. Are you familiar with that term in economics?
Time is money.
I mean, there's a transaction cost to just about everything you do. Like if you go to a popular coffee shop, there's a transaction cost basically because it's going to be popular and you're going to have to wait versus if you just went to a crappy place. Yeah. So exactly. And that's why there's so many gray area products that exist right now. They're designed very carefully around legal definitions, not necessarily around how the player will emotionally experience them.
Yeah. So let's jump into one of those areas. And I think it's really around social casinos, Swoops casinos, but social casino is one of the weirdest examples of this because technically you can't cash out. So again, prize, consideration, and chance. It's the consideration part, the prize part. Because you can't cash out, there's no real money prize. So legally, many products argue it's not gambling. but players still spend huge amount of real money on virtual chips, coins, energy systems, progressions, and sometimes thousands and thousands of dollars.
I mean, yeah, back in the day, there were like players on Double Down that spent like $4,000 a month just on virtual coins. I mean, that was just somewhat ridiculous. Yeah, I think psychologically the experience can almost feel like identical to gambling because I think those players, like the players that are actually contributing a noticeable amount of money, if they do win, they're actually not going to spend that money the following month. So in that case, I guess, right? But not to mention, there's also the experience part of it, right? So you're doing the spinning, you're getting the bonuses, you got the near misses, the dopamine stuff, the anticipation of winning. You understand the games better if you actually do, because a lot of people who do play social gaming also do real wager gaming. So there was that whole thing. But again, the difference was how they were actually getting paid out. So that created sort of a bizarre question. So if the player experiences it like gambling, does the legal distinction even matter?
It's true. It's like Pavlov's dogs. I think that's you're training them. All right. So social casinos are one of the strangest categories, like we just mentioned, in gaming, because technically you usually can't cash out.
But again, players spend the real money. They spin the reels, they chase bonuses. There's progressive meters always spinning. There's the experience of near missing. They engage with the exact same psychology of if they're playing like a real gambling game.
So the question really becomes, is just like gambling, does the legal distinction actually matter?
Because eventually you got to get to the point where if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, people are going to call it a duck. And if those ducks are regulated, then you're going to get regulated. You're going to get regulated ducks, Tim. See when I'm
Exactly.
looking. See when I turn my eyes, I'm looking at you because you're like right there. Anyway,
Just start looking all over the place. All right. Then you get into, you should probably say, so social casinos are more around you put in money and you can't take the money out. Sweepstakes are a whole other level in this gray area, which might be the most internet era legal workaround imaginable. Dual currencies, sweep coins, promotional framing, mail-in entries. Structurally, they're designed around the legal compliance, but from a perspective, a lot of people would just say what you just said, which if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck.
yeah. I mean, I kind of think because if you look at the McDonald's Monopoly game, it's kind of the same concept, right? I mean, you're buying a product, you're spending money, you're getting a consideration potentially. I've never
Yeah,
actually really thought of.
the reason they get around that, and
I've never actually.
there's definitely sweepstakes rules, right? And so you're not actually buying the sweepstakes, the entry. You're buying the Coca-Cola or the French fries or the drink or whatever the case may be, right? And that's how they get around it. And most people don't realize even the McDonald's game and what makes it legal is you can actually write in to McDonald's and get entries. So all the sweepstakes, if you look on the T's and C's of sweepstakes, you can write in and get physical sweeps coins.
I mean, yeah, you always can write in with a self-addressed stamped envelope for another token, right? That's correct, right?
100%. And so the thought is like, hey, you're going to pay this fake money, play these games, and we're going to give you some reward, yeah, that you can cash out. It's very great, to say the least. And you know,
Those aren't really even regulated, are they?
well, I think when they read this is we get into kind of regulations as a whole, but this is where it gets into, you think about the publisher clearinghouse where they showed up with a big check or things like that, like Monopoly or those Monopoly McDonald's games that you just mentioned. Those things that was a traditional form of this, but someone along the way was like, wow, if they could take that same structure, we could do casino gaming and put it on casino games. And so uh, I would say people have a lot of ingenuity, and creativity to figure out the loopholes in all of the laws and stuff like that.
I mean, yeah, I just saw an episode. I'm jumping off script. I just saw an episode on these pills and stuff you can buy like at convenience stores. That basically mimic Cialis and all of these things, and how they're not regulated. They're called health supplements.
Oh, we could get in a whole episode of health supplements that they're not even regulated
And they're yeah, and
versus
they're
Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently you can buy like little labels for it and kind of do things at your home and then basically sell them to convenience stores and the look and feel is the same. I mean, it was kind of an insane episode. But anyway, long story short,
Scary.
it's
All right,
quite scary.
yes, let's shift to the next one, which is DFS and prediction markets. Daily fantasy sports was another major turning point because DFS normalized the idea that gambling could potentially be reframed as a skill, and legally that mattered a lot. Statistics, player research, lineup optimization. The argument became this isn't pure chance. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead.
This this isn't pure chance, but
Well, I was just going to go back to prize, consideration, chance. You need to have all three of those. And if it's not a game of chance, not considered gambling.
I mean, what's if you look at sports betting? What are obviously there's a prize because you can win money back. And the consideration is your wager, and the chance is you don't
Well,
have the actual.
because it's skilled. Like you could look at lineups, you could do all these other things to it. There's I almost think there's a meter of skill on how skilled it is. Right? You could argue chess, for instance, the game of chess. Anyone could get lucky, but over a long term, it's skill. Right? That couldn't beat Magnus Carlsen. Right?
Look at you throwing out some knowledge. Anyway,
Or Bobby Fischer. There you go.
yeah, that didn't end well. Anyway, and whether people agree or disagree with that, DFS absolutely sort of changed this conversation. So it forced regulators to start thinking differently about how skill, prediction, probability, and player agency are going to play a role in the actual pure definition of gambling. And so now prediction markets are creating the next version of that conversation. And what's the actual term? They say it's a time contract, right? That's how it's like they're regulated sort of through finance. Don't they call them like a time contract or a spot contract or something?
Yeah, I think it's a spot contract, which it goes into option trading and stuff like that. It is regulated, but it's regulated by a different agency, by the federal government rather than on the state level. So
Yeah,
at least, yeah,
it's regulated through the finance department.
yeah,
Commerce, Department of Commerce. There is no finance department. There,
it's like a five-letter acronym. Uh, the CFTC, which is a Commodity Futures Trading Commission.
there you go. Futures. That's what it is. Yes, it's a future trade. So it's done very similar. It's called an event contract. Price between $0 and $1. It's the most clever way to backdoor gambling.
That it is, and again, it comes back to when people thought about option trading and how it was. I don't think people were anticipating, this is how they're going to take it. But again, creative people use the laws and loopholes, and I think we should shout out John Oliver, which has a show. You can check it out on YouTube or any one of those ways to look at it, but called Last Week Tonight with John Oliver on HBO. He does a really, really good episode on prediction markets. And it's actually a great example of how absurd everything we're talking about starts sounding. Because now you got platforms that people effectively are speculating on elections, sports outcomes, economic events, current events. And honestly, on a side note related to that, and I know Kalshi and Polymarket really try to clamp down on this, but the idea of betting on a negative outcome, like I don't know, someone dying or a war happening, just doesn't. There's an ethical line and moral line to me as well. But this debate really becomes into is this investing? Is this forecasting? Is this gambling? Or is it all just probability markets with different branding? So, with that, prediction markets may be the clearest example of the old gambling definitions that are struggling because now people can speculate on sports, elections, economic events, basically anything.
Yeah. And depending on who you ask, it's either investing, forecasting, information markets, or gambling.
Yeah, that's the weird part. The mechanics often look incredibly similar. You're risking money on uncertain outcomes.
Yeah. So, and I mean, historically, definitely in the U.S., technology evolves way faster than a regulation does, especially in the modern day era of the U.S. And honestly, I guess I'm double dipping here. And honestly, I think prediction markets expose how outdated some gambling definitions may be. It also exposes how impotent I think the government regulations are, the motivations behind them. So again, and technology has always evolved faster than regulation, hence why we still, I don't think, have a comprehensive AI regulation in the US. And that's always seems to happen, especially more and more. Maybe because we have so many politicians in their 80s, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, the internet
I,
creates product. What?
I do want to say, have you ever watched that video where Zuckerberg years and years ago was being asked a bunch of questions by a bunch of 8-year-old men and about Facebook? They're like,
Yeah.
how do you make money on that? Shouldn't you have some regulatory thing on there, like with some terms and conditions or something that about the product and how you use it? He's like, we do.
I mean,
Just the questions were hilarious.
I
Sad.
mean, well, what's funny is they have aides too that aren't 80 years old. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a whole episode we could do about whether or not 80-year-olds should be in the government anyway, but that's neither here nor there. But at the end of the day, the internet, I think the world really creates products way faster than governments can create frameworks to regulate it properly.
I think that's a great point. The next area I think we should probably talk about is we did up to crypto. You got to point to it one of these ways to take a look at it. But crypto scans digital item. I think we're all kind of grouping all this in here. But then you have skins gambling, you have crypto gambling, which introduce entirely new ecosystems. There's a product called CSGO, which is Counter-Strike. It's a game similar to like the Fortnite, that first-person shooter type of game. And it was one of the biggest examples. Virtual skins suddenly had rarity, value, secondary markets. And once a digital item has value, people immediately start gambling with them.
Yeah, and that's one of the most internet native things imaginable. Because you have younger audiences growing up online, already understood digital ownership. So to older generation, it's just a skin. To the younger players, that's an asset, that's value. And if I could just kind of just talk a little bit here. So during COVID, because we were all home and we had plenty of time on our hands, I started playing a game called Evony, which is like a role playing game where you're part of a world and then you join a clan and whatever. But yeah,
Yep.
and there was like value associated. You're putting all this time and energy into like building this city or whatever kingdom. I don't know what it's called. Anyway, but yeah, there's a value
Yeah,
associated
yeah,
with that.
you know what it's called. You
Yeah.
played lots of hours. Give it the real name. What's the real name? Come on.
Well, the game is Evony, but you're part of a team, and then you go from there are multiple servers, and like once every 2 weeks there's like a server war, so you basically can hop on another person's server and you know fight with them or whatever. Stupid things, but yeah, but you're but the point is that the thing you built up had value, and while that's not technically gambling, it is asset creation, which is also another weird loophole because the gaming company, Evany, which uh, I'll put the gaming company here. I can't remember what it's called, something Kings or whatever. They basically specifically said you couldn't sell their games because if they did, then there's a whole tax question, right? Because then if each one of their avatars or whatever had value, then obviously their company is worth a lot more than they're saying it's worth. So
Yeah,
how do you like that story?
I love it.
Tim will never accuse me of just reading scripts.
We don't read
I,
scripts. What are you talking about? This is all ad hoc, right?
yeah, totally. I mean, yeah. I'm really interested about loot boxes, actually.
Until they are.
Hmm.
We can tangent, but we'll get to it. All right. So let's talk about crypto casinos. I think it accelerated even further. They had faster deposits, global access, provably fair systems, the streamer culture. We talked about this again on a different video. Highly encourage you to watch it. But those products were designed around the internet behavior, speed, volatility, instant engagement, not traditional casino environments. Now, third category, which you seem very excited about, which is like the loot boxes, Fortnite. You probably heard that game before. Roblox is probably part of this as well. And I would say we should add in kids and how it impacts children and younger generations. And it's probably the most important part of the conversation because I think the gambling psychology escaped the casino a long time ago, years and years ago. And people probably studied the casino environment and realized, oh, some of these mechanics we can use in other places. And so now kids interact with gambling adjacent mechanisms or mechanics constantly today.
What game does Roblox make? Is it
It
Roblox?
doesn't. Roblox is the game, but it's more of a platform, and there's creators in Roblox that can make individual games within Roblox. So there's thousands to thousands of individual Roblox type games in there. So a kid could make a game within Roblox.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I mean, my 5-year-old is starting to learn how to do that, which is freaky. But they don't. They're not the one doing Minecraft, right? Or is Minecraft part of that?
Minecraft's no, it's two separate
Okay.
games. The problem with Roblox, there's actually Roblox casinos. So there's developers of Roblox that sits outside of the company, and you can actually develop casinos. So
I mean, I feel that was like Meta's big dream of when they're creating their meta universe. But anyway, neither here nor there.
yeah,
Fortnite is a great example of how normalized digital economies became. So it wasn't necessarily gambling directly, but it had skins, you had rarity, you had the limited items, rotating shops, social status tied to cosmetics. It sounds exactly like baseball card collecting, Tim, in the 80s, if I'm being honest. Anyway,
it does, but in a digital format,
yeah.
and there's a lot more options you can get.
And yeah, the entire systems were built around anticipation and acquisition. And while I talk about baseball cards for a minute, there are digital baseball card, like Tops basically created. You can get digital baseball cards. I mean, they're
Yeah.
almost like NFTs in a certain way, but
So let's not
but
get
they're
started
not.
on that.
uh, I mean, the same storyline though, right? I mean, it's the same kind of stuff. Wow.
Yes, 100%. And then going to your question about Roblox, then you layer in games like this where it's even blurry because Roblox isn't just one game, it's an ecosystem. And if you haven't played it or you don't have kids, or if you do have kids that are playing it, you just should be aware. And so inside the ecosystem, you have casino style games, immediate gambling, Robux. Robux is the currency, Robux economies, and random reward mechanics. So I've seen, and my kids have showed me, they're a little bit older, they're teenagers, that there actually are like virtual casinos. Someone will build a game with a virtual casino and people will gamble Robux in those virtual casinos itself. And these younger audiences engage with these systems before they even understand what gambling laws are. And frankly, their probably frontal lobe, is not fully developed and they don't understand gambling as a whole. And I think one of the craziest thing about modern gambling is that kids learn gambling mechanics before they even learn gambling laws.
Right. So, I mean, loot boxes, Roblox, economies, skin trading, pack openings. I kind of want to open a pack now. Anyway, random rewards. These systems normalize. So your anticipation, your rarity, chance, your near misses. And if I can just stress one thing, a long time ago, I'm not going to age myself again, but I used to collect baseball cards. And it's so funny because if you collect enough baseball cards, eventually you can figure out, your brain will immediately know which one you don't have of a particular set. And I can't tell you the kind of feeling. I mean, it's an amazing feeling for your brain to have
When
that.
they get it.
Yeah, when
Yep.
you get it, you're like, oh my God. And in old packs, what would happen is they would pack them in such a way to where the reason you didn't have a certain set of them is because you never got this pack. And the pack was generally the same pack, just, there were 5,000 of them. And so when you got them, you didn't always get just one new one. You would get like four or five. It was freaking an amazing little system. Anyway.
I always chase the Ken Griffey upper deck rookie card. That was the one I used to chase. I'm sure you had one as well.
Wow, you were this. Yeah, that was about the same age as me. Yeah, so I was like mid 80s to late early 90s. So yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
But I have probably like the Mark McGuire tops rookie card. I probably have like 30 of those.
Remember,
Anyhow, go back.
do you remember the Billy Ripken, fuck off thing
Yeah.
on his bat?
Yeah. But I think they took that mechanic really about the card opening pack as a kid and they took it to the digital world. And it's a brilliant concept when you think about kids. Like we were even exposed to gambling with the packs, right? Um, But then, the important thing going back to all these things is really most of these systems don't look like traditional gambling. They look like entertainment.
Right. Casino psychology sort of escaped casinos years ago. And that's the important part. An entire generation learned gambling mechanics before they even learned the gambling definition, before they even learned that they were actually just gambling. They all had the near misses, the rarity systems, opening packs, spinning wheels, loot boxes, those kinds of things. I guess I may have said rarity systems. I guess that's the same thing. Anyway, casino psychology left the casino, like I said, years ago.
Yeah, and this is where regulations start struggling because regulators were originally focused on casino, sportsbook, physical gaming, gambling products like the brick and mortar casinos, but not a gaming ecosystem with millions of kids interacting through virtual economies. Um, and it's a struggle, frankly, to keep up with that.
Well, what's funny is like if you think about it, if you think about like collecting, I mean, doesn't the gaming company, so Tops, which is owned by Fanatics, right? Doesn't I mean they have like, I mean they can manipulate it in such a way where because what they're making essentially creates value. I mean, they're essentially asset creation, but they're not regulated. It's kind of insane, right?
Yeah, but
I never really thought
there's
of it.
probably I'm sure we could do analyze price consideration and chance as well. And I'm sure somehow they get around one of those three things.
We definitely need to do an episode on card collecting. I mean, I'll even show you my Charizard.
Yeah. Well, there you go. All
I
right.
have.
So
I also have an autographed Roberto Clemente card, but
I have an
who's to,
autograph Gary Carter and Jose Canseco picture.
just randomly?
Yeah.
Were
Yeah,
you
they're in an all-star game, and it was a picture of those two guys, and they both signed it.
were you a big Gary Carter fan?
No, I was a huge Canseco fan, though. He was like one of my favorite players growing up.
Wow, I never
Well, it's
knew.
funny. It's funny because I grew up in South Florida. They didn't have a team when I was growing up, and so I somehow the A's
We,
were big and popular, and that's who I watched, even though I was on the opposite side of the coast growing up in Florida.
I
You know,
mean, we could debate whether or not they even have a team now.
we could go into the financial aspect of
Ouch.
profit sharing with baseball, but the A's have done amazing things for the budget they have.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the whole Moneyball
Yeah.
situation. Again, another show we could do because I mean, while that was a big topic, 15 years ago, I don't think anyone's really touched it since. In fact, if you hear the announcers say, who are now all former players, they basically say, "I don't care what the analytics says," and then they just repeat basically what the analytics says. It's kind of funny.
At some point they're just going to have like a AI GM, and they're going to draft players and set lineups of teams based off the AI.
I
Anyhow,
mean,
all right, that's
again,
we could get it on this.
yet another show on the massive declining attraction or entertaining value of sports announcers. But anyway, yeah, let's get back to perception versus legality, Tim.
So we talked about the framework at the beginning of the call, perception, probability, design, because this is where everything converges. So I'll get again, perception. This feels like gambling. That's maybe from the player perspective. Legally, maybe it isn't. And the design keeps them engaged high enough and long enough for that matter that behavior starts looking similar anyways.
Yeah, and that disconnect is growing because now the same psychological systems appear across. You have casinos, like we said, video games, social apps, prediction platforms, streaming ecosystems. You have, which is basically you're gambling on watching other people play video games. Maybe that is part of the whole streaming ecosystem. I don't know, but the categories now are simply blended together, and it's kind of becoming like a hot mess.
Yeah, and here's the thing I think regulators as a whole kind of struggle with because players usually don't care about the legal definitions.
Players care about the experience. So emotionally, like a loot box, a sweepstakes casino, and a slot machine can create very similar feelings psychologically.
Yeah, and that's where I would say this conversation just gets complicated because psychologically the systems can feel identical, even if legally they're classified completely different.
Correct. The law sees categories, the players see experiences.
And honestly, the player usually doesn't care about legal definitions, they care about experience. And you mentioned it mostly a loot box, sweepstakes, yada, yada, yada. have similar feelings, even if the regulators classify them completely differently.
I don't remember ever mentioning yada yada yada, but anyway. So, so
Well,
maybe
I think go ahead.
that means something. That means different things for different people. Yada yada yada. Yeah. It's like when I wear a pineapple T-shirt in Mill Valley. I can't tell you how many comments I get about the history of the pineapple in Mill Valley. Anyway. Oh man, now
I want to say there was a Friends show or something like that where they yada 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 something, or How I Met Your Mother, where they're like,
it meant
yeah, I hung out with your wife the other day and we had drinks, yada yada yada.
it was
Maybe it was a Seinfeld or something.
It was Seinfeld, and it meant sex. It meant they had sex.
Yeah.
Hence why I didn't mention yada yada yada. But anyway, so jumping forward, mind in the gutter. Maybe the biggest takeaway here is that the internet changed gambling faster than regulation could adapt. I think we've pretty much pounded that into the ground anyway. And now we're living in this strange gray area where mechanics spread faster than laws, engagement gets monetized everywhere, content. Younger audience grow up inside these systems naturally, and older, basically aged out politicians have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, and honestly, that leads directly into the next conversation we want to have, which is around responsible gaming, which is a very broad term, because once gambling mechanics escape casinos, what responsibility do companies even have, or what should they have? What should players have? But I think it's particularly, we touched on it earlier, around younger audiences and when they get involved around these mechanics. It's probably the next big discussion, I think, as not only what you and I will discuss, but I think more broadly that these regulators and these politicians should be discussing of how to protect these children from these things.
Think of the children, Tim. You're over there now.
It's always about the children, right? Oh, well, for the most part, it depends who you talk to, I guess. But anyhow, all right. Question for the audience: what's the greatest area to you? Is it Loopholes, Sweep Casino, prediction markets, Roblox, DFS? Where does that fall for you?
And where do you think the line should actually be? And also, I think another thing we could ask our audience is, has there ever, tell us a story of and keep it brief, because, Tim doesn't have a lot of time. But anyway, to read these. But have you ever experienced anything where you thought, you know what, this could be gambling? It just dawned on me really that, baseball card collecting was kind of like gambling. So, yeah.
There's probably a lot of things he did. And I don't have a lot of time to read it, but Chris can't, or Mello can't actually read, so we're a good team, right?
Wow. Ouch. Calling me out on my whatever. What is it called when you can't read? Anyway. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other things as a kid as well, besides baseball cards, that we didn't realize it was some form of gambling.
Well, the great thing is like at the close of the show, we can basically just rant wherever we want because, if people are still listening, great. But, at the end of the day, this is where we can kind of kick back, and it's like the after hours.
I feel like we should have put an Easter egg at the end of these videos, give away a prize or something, or, why don't we start off with doing a little dance? Like maybe you should show us your best dance move. Something like.
We'll stir up the TikTok app. The TikTok algorithm if we started doing dances.
There you go. It would actually catch fire, right?
Do they still do dances on TikTok?
Yeah, every once in a while. My daughter doesn't dance, but she sees those. So, anyhow, all right. Well, keep us posted. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Again, drop us a like, drop us a comment. More importantly, tell us, something that you grew up on that you look back on that is probably gambling now. And you didn't even realize it kind of growing up. So let us know. And as always,
gamble responsibly, never spend more money than you can afford. And this is for educational purposes only.
And